Welcome back as we have returned to talk more about Twin Peaks The Return. Today we're sticking to one episode and we're talking part 5 of this magnum opus. How are you gentlemen doing, and are you ready to get talking about this packed episode?
I'm stoked because, as we've talked about before, basically in rewatching The Return, it just continues to confirm for me that my favorite stuff in The Return is the stuff in Las Vegas. It is like, it's amazing because it's funny in a season where things can get really out there. It's funny that the stuff in Las Vegas has the most Twin Peaks feel to it than even some of the stuff in Twin Peaks. Like, it's really amazing that they pulled it off. But literally all of my favorite new characters from The Return are in this area. And today we're going to meet 3 of the best with this episode. Well, Dougie's new boss and maybe my favorite characters in the entire part of The Return, the fabulous Mitchum brothers. So I'm stoked. And also Candy. God, we can't forget Candy.
I was going to say, don't forget Candy. We get a first glimpse of her. We don't really get to meet her yet, but
we do see her. We see her in the girls.
And she does stand out. Like, she, you can tell she's not just one of the, in the background with the other two. She's standing out a little bit. So we get a little tease that she's going to end up, being something.
And literally some of the biggest laughs of this entire thing are going to be with her and the Mitchum brothers. Like, just it's one of those things. It's such a wonderful reminder of just how great David Lynch was at directing comedy. Like, he really he does comedy so well. And it's one of those things, like, I'm sad he never got to make Ronnie Rocket. And I'm even doubly sad if you've ever had a chance to read the screenplay that he wrote called One Saliva Bubble. He had been wanting to film it with Steve Martin for forever. And apparently, like, every year, Steve Martin would reach out to him to see, like, can we finally get this done? It is one of the single funniest scripts I've ever read for anything in my life. I highly suggest you search it out on the internet. That's where I found it. One of those sites where back in the day when we could find like the Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me, the full screenplay. This screenplay is one of the funniest things I've ever read in my life, and it really would have been amazing to see Lynch do it. And I think people would have been blown away by how funny it would have been. So yeah, the Return is wonderful for so many reasons, but one of them for me is the comedy in it, and a lot of that involving Dougie, much of it involving the Mitchum brothers and Candy. So there is just a lot of great stuff that this episode really starts branching out where The Return is going to go. You get a lot of new characters and some new storylines lining up. That's all going to come together, of course, when we get to the end.
Yeah, it does feel like this episode was doing some plot work. Like, it was
real heavy lifting,
tell some of the stories. Whereas, like, we've been sort of being introduced to things, and now we're starting to see a narrative or a bunch of narratives sort of start to come out.
Many.
Yeah. And I appreciated that. It reminded me of things to look forward to that are coming up, but also, it started to pose some real questions because, when you've seen the whole series, you can look back at the Mitchum brothers and sort of see them in this, like, sort of humorous, charming way, but you forget that they're introduced in this very ominous, kind of threatening way. And that's part of where their arc goes, right? But it was a reminder that there is that sort of element to it. And just seeing some of the start of this, I don't want to touch on everything yet, but why don't we start with Las Vegas, because the episode starts there, and there's quite a bit of darkness. There's the kid with the car bomb. Like, that scene is quite dark in a way. Not as dark as some other kid scenes that are coming up in the show, but still it's
an intense moment. Well, I like too that it's like it starts showing us again, furthering what we saw when he became Mr. Jackpots, but it starts showing us like the incredible luck of one Dougie Jones. He just, but so much of it is like, and again, watching it again, like, I look at Dougie and I just see more and more of Cooper. So it's like, now I don't feel like I got like I didn't get as much time with Cooper that I wanted, because there is so much of Cooper in Dougie Jones. It's like the pure goodness of Dale Cooper and its like bottled essence is Dougie Jones. And that also includes, Cooper's incredible luck. This all continues to be seen with Dougie. We get, Jade helping out with the room key. Like, it's just some really great stuff happening with Dougie Jones now. And I know when this came out, I remember so many people like complained about Dougie because they just wanted Agent Cooper back.
Right.
And to me, like, when I watch it now, like Dougie's stuff, again, the stuff in Las Vegas is maybe my favorite stuff in the entire return. It's just really great stuff. So yeah, we start off with the car bomb and the failed assassination attempt of one Dougie Jones. Mm-hmm. And then we get a quick glimpse to Buenos Aires.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So we start tying into Philip Jeffries and that weirdness.
Yeah, we think. I mean, that's a thread that never really gets fully resolved, but it's interesting because it creates the mystery, right? It creates a lot of the, and one of those things where, again, I'm starting to, like, watching it again, I'm like, oh yeah, what do I make of this? How do I wrap my head around why this is turning into a marble at the end here? What does that connect to? And I think we can talk about some of that more as that goes along. But, there are things going on in the background that we're not necessarily aware of. But you're right. You touched on something before about just the sheer humor in this episode. And there is so much.
Lots.
Dougie is a bit of a clown figure in a way, which is, I think, perhaps partially why people were annoyed with him. And, a lot of people were, not everyone was. But, because he, there's the scene here where he has to go to the bathroom that is, very much on the sort of old school, real sort of screwball, slapsticky side of humor.
Also, somehow people can't help themselves but find him so damn charming because that female coworker is like hitting on him when she's helping him go to the bathroom. Like, what is he doing that, like, he's giving off this charisma? He just has to go to the bathroom.
At the company, even with the problems that Dougie has had, we get another one of my favorite characters in this season, his boss, Bushnell. Battling Bushnell, who you find out was a boxer. I love that about Bushnell. He's wonderful. But I love that even with the problems where Dougie's not been doing his job, basically, he still will not, like, fire him. He still wants to, like, give him every opportunity to, like, still be there. And then, of course, we get Tom Sizemore coming into it and his sleazy character, who, again, I love everything about this stuff. Like, this whole episode is chock full of so many great characters. But Bushnell is one of those that, like, again, as the season goes on, you just absolutely love Bushnell. He's such a good guy. And I really appreciate, like, his evolution of a character. What I really love about how this will all play out is that great goodness of all things Agent Cooper that is Dougie Jones. How he inspires goodness in everybody who comes into his orbit. And I think that's so charming and so wonderful. And of course, we'll see it more as the season unfolds. But this is where it all starts. And Bushnell is one of those characters that, again, gets that win from believing in Dougie and supporting him and being there for him. There's major payoff, of course, as the season goes on. So Bushnell becomes one of my favorite characters of the season. I think he's just such a great character. And, everybody in the Lucky Seven insurance company, they're all great. Like, they're even horrible Tom Sizemore ends up being a really great character. So it's like there's so much going on here that's just so good. I mean,
even in the whole thing after Dougie gets forced to go to work, and he's in the elevator with, like, the assistant guy who had to go get coffee for everybody. And the actor who plays Frank, who he gives his coffee to, and he's like, I got this green tea. Just that guy's bit of business where he's trying to drink the green tea. Like, he's like, fine. And he's like trying to convince himself maybe it's good, but he's like, no, it's terrible.
It's so good.
Well, I think this is, I was reflecting on this a little bit because there is this sort of long arc of Cooper being infused into the Dougie body and bringing this sense of goodness and having this influence. Like, we started to see a little bit of it with the luck and the, Mr. Jackpot and the woman at the casino. And then we start to see it here in the insurance company. We're going to see a whole sort of development of that with the Mitchum brothers, without getting too much into it. But I think what's interesting about that is what the end of the show really has to say a lot about Cooper's heroism, right? Like, so there is this real goodness, and maybe we can talk, maybe it's more appropriate to talk about these things at the end, but I do think that they're saying something about how, like, goodness isn't enough, that it's not necessarily about being well-intentioned or being truly, like, good, that you could still be doing the wrong things, right?
Yes.
And so I'm going to be interested to talk about how that contrasts with the end of this, with the end of the show.
Yeah, when we get there, that's true.
Yeah.
No, we get the whole introduction to the Lucky Seven insurance company. I love that, like, they just start talking to Dougie like he's always been Dougie, right? Like, nobody seems to notice the weirdness of him, and it's so funny that, like, he's so fucking awkward, and everybody just plays it up like, oh, it's just Dougie, like, come on, man, we got to get you, like you said, the girl that helps him get to the bathroom doesn't question why an adult man who's been working at this place for years can't find the bathroom, can't get his pants unzipped, like, can't do it. She's just like, oh, come on, Dougie, we'll go take care of it. It's just,
well, and you wonder what he was like before. Like, we get a very brief sense of the pre-Dougie a few episodes ago.
And we learn more about him through Janie E, honestly, than we do about what the show. We learn more from what other people tell us about him than what they show. And normally that's what you don't want to do, but it ends up working really well in the context of who Dougie, like, we kind of find out through context what Dougie was like before this incident. And he was not a good guy. Like, he's not. And then again, it's that pure wholesome goodness of Cooper that starts to make things right for the people, basically, that Dougie's wronged. I mean, it really, if you think about it, like, Dougie, and we'll talk more about tulpas and stuff as this goes on, but Dougie was designed to not necessarily be a good guy, but with Agent Cooper in there, he can't help but become one. Like, and I really kind of dig that. It's like a character arc that doesn't really happen to Dougie. It more happens to everybody around him than it does him. It's really, really weird, but that's really kind of how it works.
Well, I think that he was, I mean, the little bit that we see, he was awkward before, so maybe it's not that odd that he's acting awkwardly now for all the people that are sort of in his life. But at the same time, I think that, I mean, the way I sort of have understood in my head the way Dougie would have been working before is, I mean, he was there as a distraction so that Mr. C could escape.
Exactly. Yes.
So he might just have been kind of a hollow, soulless. So he might not have been, like, bad in the way that Mr. C is bad. He would have been more
that level,
no, but he would have
selfish,
just been.
Yes, he was definitely selfish.
But I think that it's more just a lack of any kind of compass whatsoever. So
there's no empathy.
Doing exactly, So it would just be this really empty person that would end up, therefore it makes sense that he might do a lot of the things that Dougie was doing. And you're right, now that Cooper's in.
If he's designed by Mr. C, then he's not going to be good, right? Because Mr. C is not good. There is no goodness in him. So Dougie can't help but be a jerk. Granted, he's not what Mr. C is. He's not that kind of monster.
Right.
But he's obviously selfish in that he sleeps around behind his wife. He got involved with gambling debts. He doesn't pay attention to his son. Like, he's not a good employee or coworker. So we know that he's kind of, I mean, it's hard to call him evil, but he's not good. I guess he's not forthright. He's very selfish, I would say, is probably more of what he is. And Cooper, of course, is none of those things. And so when you get pure distilled good Dale Cooper,
well, that's where I might disagree. I think there's a okay, so it could be that Mr. C designed him as a way, like, to be a false him, so that he wanted him to be a bit bad, so that obviously people, like the people that would have been sort of taking him back into the lodge would believe it was Mr. C, perhaps. And the show never really answered that question, but I would say that Mr. C and the Dougie Cooper and they are all parts of all of Cooper, right?
Oh
So
no! What I meant when
right.
I said he's all good, I'm referring to the Dougie Cooper is like
Right.
the distilled goodness of
It's
Agent
only
Cooper.
the goodness that's left.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's
Yeah.
right. And that's why we see the effect that he has on
Exactly.
all of that.
That's
So
what I'm referring to there.
yeah,
Not
yeah,
Dale
yeah,
Cooper
yeah.
himself. He definitely has a dark side.
Right.
We talked about that in season 2. Like he's got a
Exactly.
dark side. We know that's there.
Right.
But like when you have like just that pure distilled goodness,
Right.
it just can't help but like, I mean, for lack of a better word, it can't help but infect everything around it, right? Like it just radiates, and so much positivity comes out of it. The lives that he changes, all the lives that he changes for the better, every single one of them for the better. I mean, like it's really fantastic.
Right.
But yeah, I love that, we get, I mean, Jade, of course, Jade gives 2 rides is one of the funniest fucking things ever. Like, I swear to God, like the first time I watched this, I couldn't breathe. I was laughing so hard. It's that simple smile and just the matter of factness with which he says it every single time.
Well,
but the fact that Jade ends up being, again, Jade ends up helping him, right? She gets him out of there before he gets spotted by the assassins. She helps get things in play by putting the Great Northern Key in the mailbox. Like, that has massive payoff at the end. And I love,
she could have thrown it out.
Right, exactly. She could have just thrown it out, but she doesn't because Jade is good. Or you could even say Dougie Coop is already starting to have his, like, manifesting that goodness and makes Jade realize that, I don't have to just throw this away. I can put that in the mailbox like it says to do. We'll just see what happens.
Yeah,
any way you want to look at it.
2 seconds out of her day, right? Like it wasn't that she had to go to great lengths to do it.
Well, that's why she's getting her car detailed, because the guy's like, hey, did one of your Johns leave this in the car from Washington? And she's like, Dougie. And I was going to say, you see glimpses if you've, maybe on first watch you don't notice it, but you see glimpses of Cooper actually in Dougie, like the scene when they're leaving the house and he's looking at the son, like he can see the son's sadness.
Yeah.
Like, and there's empathy there. And then even though he's getting assistance from the other side, the White Lodge, whatever, where he can tell, like, Tom Sizemore's character's lying, that's Cooper's intuition, though, too.
Yes, it is. It is. No, all that is legit. I mean, the way that he responds when they say the words like agent and case, like, it's like,
well, when he's fascinated by the statue with the gun.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that comes into play later on in the season too. Like that statue. I mean, like it's there. It's like constantly a reminder.
Well,
so it's like he's there. He's there. Yeah. He's just not got full control of everything yet.
And talking about how Dougie might have been or not been, in future episodes, Janie's going to say he has some sort of condition that flares up from time to time.
Right.
And I don't know if that's just her.
That's true. I forgot about that.
Yeah. And I don't know if that's just an excuse she tells people for the strange behavior or, what, but.
Or if it's really something that was there. Yeah. Well, we also, again, we're introduced to the Mitchum brothers. But as you said, they're a little more sinister in this because it's playing up that the mafia casino, trope of them being like vindictive because of, Mr. Jackpots and all of his winnings. They're taking it out on the guy because it's like, obviously you were involved. There's no way on earth you could have won that much money.
Right.
This is your fault. And of course they beat the shit out of that guy.
Well, which is also perfect Lynch comedy. Why that horrible scene is going on. You got Candy in the background just staring at her hand.
Yes. Right. Yeah, we don't know who she is yet because I don't think we get her name.
I don't think they name drop her yet.
No, but she does stand out. Like I said, there's not just 3 chorus girls in the background or whatever they are. She's obviously making herself known to the audience, and so we do, like, again, you're right about the just how incredible of a comedy director Lynch was. And it's interesting that he never made a full-out comedy. And
I know it really is, because he would have excelled. He really would have.
One saliva bubble, wasn't it supposed to be at one point Steve Martin and Martin Short?
Yes. Pre only murders in the building.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I got to show this week I showed Mulholland Drive to some friends, and there was a lot of laughter throughout, right? And you do sort of sometimes forget just how great the comedy is there, how great the comedy is in Twin Peaks. There's so much in the first 2 seasons.
Twin Peaks is like
and
some of the
here,
funniest stuff I've ever seen on TV.
Yeah, exactly. So the way he balances it all, because you're right, he's got this dark scene, and we're introduced to the Mitchum brothers again. We're introduced to them in a very sort of sinister way. They're very, Tarantino-esque,
Yes,
characters
very.
that are, have a very dark edge to them. And we're going to see again, they're going to serve a certain purpose for the narrative of the show and Cooper's development. But we're introducing them in this way, but yet Lynch still gives us some comedy as that's happening too. I don't know if it softens it, but it does help maybe balance it, maybe is a better way to say
Yeah, I'd say that's a good way to put it, is it balances out. And it also is just, it really does like make you like wonder, like, what is she doing? What?
Yeah.
Is she just looking at her hands? Like,
right.
What? Like, it's so
right.
And I mean, like, it's weird to think that she's the ringleader of the three of them, right? Like, she's the brains of the outfit. And that's a terrifying concept when you start looking at this in the grand scheme. But
well, I think my first impulse when I saw that scene originally was that it might have been she might have been high or something, right? Like, I think I had
or it's a regular occurrence, like, right? Like, you see it all the time, so it's just not a big deal to them because it happens all the time.
Don't pay attention to it because it happens. This is just Tuesday.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, even Dave Dale Smunchin is doing a little bit of comedy with his facial reactions.
Yes,
and it's like you have his job now. It's like, oh.
Yeah.
I don't want to be.
I don't want that job.
Yeah, exactly. Did I sign up for that?
It's like when you're in the Empire and Darth Vader keeps on like, you're now you're the new general, whatever. Like, and it's like,
yeah, very much
means
that
I'm gonna
energy.
get choked out next, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. No, it's a very well put together scene.
It is. It's really well done. I remember too. We do get to go back to Twin Peaks for a brief bit because we actually get to see Frank and his wife, who's not very kind to him about that pipe, that damn pipe, right? But like, how wonderful is Frank Truman in this season? Like, if you can't get Harry, if Michael Onkene's retired from acting and will not come back, and of course Robert Forster is in Mulholland Drive, he would have been in the TV series had it gone to series. How wonderful is it to get to see Lynch work with Robert Forster again? And, again, talk about an actor who is just a fucking actor, man. Like, Robert Forster like, Alligator is a great movie because of Robert Forster, right? Like, he just has this persona in anything that he was in. I mean, God, Jackie Brown in particular, fuck me running. What a great film. What a great performance. But I love Frank. He's such a great character. He's such a wonderful, like, he's not trying to be Harry Truman. He's not trying to be Harry. He is his own thing. And I really, really do love that. But it's like, it's this scene is one of those, it's like, it's funny and it's also uncomfortable because, like, it's the delivery of the dialogue is really kind of funny, but it's so uncomfortable because you feel bad for Frank because he's such a good guy that he doesn't deserve to have someone just coming at him like that about a pipe, right? Like, it's just, it's a little rough, man. Like, I feel bad for him every time because he's such a good guy.
Well, especially with everything that's on his plate, right? Like, he's just gotten off the phone with Harry, right? And with not great news. So he's dealing with that. It had very early season 1 vibes of Ed and Nadine, kind of. That you're seeing this long suffering guy who's
it very much has
Ed
and Nadine vibes. Yes,
dealing with somebody who's clearly not well. Right? Yeah. Like, his wife is clearly not well.
No, she's not. No, she's not.
We're getting that indication, and I saw it as a very tragic scene.
It is, but it's like the dialogue is so it's that weird Lynch dialogue that's kind of funny, even when it's uncomfortable. There's just it's so odd. Like, who would talk to someone like that about a leaky pipe? Like, it's kind of like that. But no, it is. That's why I said it's comically uncomfortable.
Yeah,
because like it's very uncomfortable. It really is. But at the same time, like, it's just odd dialogue. But you see Harry, like, just, this is something he deals with on a regular basis. Like, you can just see it on his face. This is just probably a daily thing, sadly enough. But I love that we just, even though it's a small glimpse, it just allows us to get to know more about Harry and Frank, to know more about Frank and to just care about him that much more. And I love, when he's talking to Harry and he's just, Harry, beat this thing. Like, it's just,
well, they didn't want to just have this guy be a stand-in and not
exactly.
We had to learn who this guy is. We had to get some connection to him and why he's there, as opposed
and get a little bit of back on what's going on with Harry as well. So like, it gives us that as well. It's a really great, it's a small scene, but it's a great scene. It really is.
Yeah. It does a lot of heavy lifting.
And I love
the
contrast of her over the topness of just berating him about everything and him just being even keel and calm the whole time. And even though it's uncomfortable, it's just hilarious when she's like, "You're impossible," and he's like,
right.
Like, you didn't do anything. He's just listening and responding.
Dude is ice cold, man. He's steady Eddie. He just does not shake. Because again, this is a regular occurrence. Let's be honest. He does this all the time. But it's again, that's what I said. It's comically uncomfortable, and Lynch does a really good job of those kinds of scenes. He really does.
And he's also got to deal with Lucy, like basically narrating what's happening, even though he knows. Yes, it's coming. You don't have to.
Yeah. And Lucy not understanding how cell phones work. So, there's a lot going on in the station that Frank deals with, damn it. Am I the only one that cares about this? Now we do get to stay in Twin Peaks though, because we get to see
Mike.
His daughter.
But before that, we get to see Mike. And,
we do see Mike. That's right. We do see Mike.
It's interesting to see. I actually kind of enjoy this scene. I know that this is his only, I think, moment.
It is. Yeah, I think it's the only time. Yes.
I mean, Mike was not an overly important character in the original series. He was basically there filling a role to develop Donna and Bobby, basically, right? Yeah, like the two of their characters, played off of and sort of grew around him, and he kind of, and then he had comic relief plotline with Nadine, right? So he was, again, it sort of felt like they were making work for him in a way. But it was interesting to see this because you get this like, because we get to see where Bobby ended up, but now we get to see, and it just feels very. Seeing him that he's just in this very kind of workaday kind of role, like he was this star,
football and wrestling guy.
Exactly, in high school. But one of those guys who peaked in high school, right?
Yes, he definitely peaked
that
in high school.
Guy. Yes. And now he's doing this, and it's.
But at the same time, I was kind of like, well, good for him. At least he's got like a legitimate 9-to-5 job. Okay. Like working in an office with like a shirt, like a suit and tie. Because like I would have never thought that's where Mike would end up. It's also like the perfect kind of like personal hell that he deserves, right? But again, it's I would have not thought the path that he was going on that he would end up being a like legitimate person in a workforce. Like I thought that's the guy who'd be like dealing drugs out of a trailer or some shit, right? Like,
well, I mean, I don't know. Guys like Mike fail upwards, but they only get to like a certain kind of.
There's only they plateau,
right? Yeah, exactly, and that's what we basically see. And I just thought that felt so fitting. And they don't just shoehorn him in there so that look, there's Mike. It actually serves where this plot is going. Once again, he's only there to serve somebody else's plot, right? And this is. This is Shelley's daughter's plot, right? And the guy that unfortunately she has ended up with. And that scene I find, so that whole scene with Norma and Shelley, it's one of my favorites of this episode. So powerful. Like just really seeing where, like just the real, very real world working woman struggles that they're having, and the way that these sort of generationally these things sort of pass on, because they both had their history with the wrong man, right?
Oh God, yes.
And even though Shelley's wrong man ended up maybe not being so badly wrong, they we'll get to more of that or explore that later, but they both understand that, and then seeing just seeing the frustration that they both, because we talked about this before, Norma looks at Shelley like a daughter in a way, or like a little sister in a way, and so she can really empathize with what she's going through, seeing her daughter do this, and the looks on, like, the performance that she gives in that scene, Norma sitting there in the booth and just watching what's going on, and everything's just on her face. I was just really blown away again by what a great scene that is. And then how tragic it is. There's like, I think Amanda Seyfried is a great actress, and I think
Yes.
seeing her here, you know, and the way Lynch films that her driving off
Yes.
scene is just so incredible. Like,
And it's funny because like you get shades of Laura Palmer in that, right? Like the pretty blonde.
yeah,
Everybody thinks she's wonderful, but she's like dealing with drugs and dealing with the wrong people. Like
yeah,
you see shades of Shelley in her past, and you see shades of Laura Palmer,
yeah,
and you really get that vibe that like everything is kind of cyclical in Twin Peaks, right? Like it's just these cycles continue to just run and run and run. Although we do get some breaks in those cycles at the end, especially in the case of Norma and Ed. So
can't
we'll
wait
get
for
that.
that.
It's the best. So like, but I love that like we see Norma in a position too where she's not just running the diner, she now runs a franchise, right? Like she's not just Norma behind the counter, she has numerous double R diners that she's now responsible for. So like she has expanded, she's
become quite successful.
She's become very successful.
She's worked for it. She has earned every
and at the same
bit
time
of that success.
She's still there in the double R. Right? Like she's still there.
In the
and
uniform.
You love that. Yes. She's just like,
and she's there for Shelley, and
definitely there for Shelley.
Yeah. And they both again, just I love this scene. This might be like one of my favorite bits of
it's wonderful. No, it is. It's wonderful.
But the two women, like they're so great because they're both so incredibly gorgeous.
Yes.
They're both so incredibly like tired. And they both perform the scene so well in terms of like conveying all of that.
Yeah.
And the fear and the frustration, the almost, I don't want to say resigning, but just the like, what do I even do? As they see her drive off with this guy again, like it's just such a powerful scene.
And then you see like, him with, Steven with Becky, and you're just like, man, this guy's such a fucking leech. Like,
well,
he is just awful.
I don't know about how Caleb Landry Jones is as a person, but his screen persona for most of his performances, he has to be like the scuzziest human being on the planet.
He's a nice guy in 3 Billboards. But
he is a fairly nice guy. And
but you're right, he does this role really well.
He plays it well. He plays it really well.
He's in this and Get Out. Like, it's like, and even though I guess Mike failed up because he's working at who knows a bank or an insurance place.
Right.
I mean, that is pure comedy though, where he berates this guy like, this is the worst resume I've ever seen. Like, you didn't even fill out the paperwork properly. Just get the fuck out of my office.
Right.
And this is the guy that Becky is with, like, right? Like, this is who Becky has chosen. And it's like, it's so frustrating because again, with Shelley, she sees shades of her and Leo, right? Like, she sees it. And she knew Laura, so she sees shades of Laura Palmer. Like, and then of course Norma watched all of that happen because Norma knew Laura through the Meals on Wheels. Norma of course loves Shelley, so she's almost like a grandmother watching her granddaughter throw her life away. So it's like it's such a frustrating storyline, right? Because like Becky is a beautiful girl, and being the daughter of Shelley, and of course we'll find out who her dad is later on, but being the daughter of these two people, like, you would just hope that she would be better. But then when you look at who the two people are and you look at where they were at that time in their lives, it's cyclical, man. It just, what is it from True Detective? Time's a flat circle, right? Like you're gonna repeat it again. And it just kind of feels like that. It really does. Like this is what Becky's story is basically going to. It's on the path of becoming. Let's just say that.
Well, and Norma and Hank, and then of course her bringing the bread is definitely similar to Laura doing the Meals on Wheels.
Yeah.
But I do
there's
love
a lot of similarities there.
That final shot when she's, tripping and they're driving off, and just the way he films it, like no other director would have captured a moment like that in a way that is so beautiful and so painful, and just like the look on her face is just such a mix of, it's just incredible. Like
it's an iconic shot. Like it really is. It's a very iconic shot. Like
I remember it being in the trailers for the show.
Yeah,
I
they
think.
used that in almost every publicity piece. Yeah, man, it was always so there. It's so beautifully shot. Like you said, it's a sad scene that's shot so beautifully. It's basically if you distilled Requiem for a Dream into one scene, man. Like that's it. Like that's literally it right there. Yeah, it's all that. Now going back to the Dougie stuff, though, I love that we get the whole thing of the engagement ring in the stomach of the headless corpse.
Okay, yeah. So Jane Addams is another person I just want to shout out to, and how great she is in this show.
She's wonderful.
She's so funny.
Wonderful.
I love how she's like just enjoying this whole ride. Like her character is having a great time. She loves what she does.
And the two detectives are just looking at her like,
she's not a psychotic person or anything. She's not like she doesn't have, I don't think she's presented as she's some sort of psychotic person who likes all the gruesomeness. She just likes what she does. She's good at what she does.
And she's got a case that's really interesting, right? Yes. Like it's not like this has far-reaching implications, and you're like, well, shit, I get to strap in on this bad boy because where the hell is this going, right? Like
so she
the head doesn't match the corpse.
Yeah.
There's a ring in the body. Like, what is this? Like, yeah, man, this would be like if that's your job, this would be the greatest goddamn part of your job you'd ever had.
Yeah, if it's your passion,
federal government implications, like Jesus, man.
Yeah, she's loving it, and she's having a great because
she is also one of the best characters in this season too.
Yeah, she's really great, and I'm glad that you get to see some character work with her too, and not just have her be that's for later though. But today, like she's making jokes, she's excited about the fact that she's onto something, and she's intrigued to figure out, and she's good at her job. All of that, great moment. But we get as Twin Peaks fans who love the mystery, who love the supernatural element of it all, like, ooh, this is really like that, and the fingerprints thing, it is all just really interesting stuff, right? Like that
you get Ernie Hudson for one scene this season, right? You get one, but that one scene is a doozy when you find out who those fingerprints belong to, man. Like, what the hell? I remember like when that scene dropped, I was like, wow, like that's insane, because as we would now know, the fingerprints of that body are one Major Garland Briggs.
Yeah.
And we've seen his head pop up earlier in the season in the space of nothingness. So his head's out there somewhere. It's out there in the void. I don't know where, but it's out there. But the head that's in the bed with him, not his head. So it's just like it's such a like great moment, because like you said, everything that you want in Twin Peaks is distilled like right there, man. Like you get the mystery, the weirdness, the supernatural, the science fiction, like it's all
Dougie's wedding ring. She's like she's reading it out, and it's like to Dougie from Janie E, and it's just like, wow, like what how like this is
right, exactly
all of this, like, ooh, exciting.
You also gotta commend David Lynch on 25 years since the show was canceled, and it's like, well, some of these actors are dead. Well, we're not recasting the roles. We're just gonna use it as a greater mystery and still have their characters be a part of the show.
Well, it's a tribute to those actors, right?
It's a real tribute to Don Davis. It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Because he brought such gravitas to that role and humor. Like it was, you felt his presence in the original show, and you feel it here. And so the fact that they're used, like some people might be like, oh, we want to be respectful, we're just going to mention that he passed away and what a great guy he was and move on. But no, David Lynch throws him right in the middle of this mystery in a way that's, a little on the gruesome side. But it does still feel like what a tribute to this man. And there'll be more scenes that we'll talk about.
Oh, yes.
Really, yes. He's Philip Jeffries, which I suspect would have had a bigger part to play had David Bowie not passed. But
yes, I think that's very obvious. But I love that he's still like in the context of the series. Like it's Don Davis. If someone were to tell me their favorite Twin Peaks character of the original run was Major Briggs,
Sure.
I would totally get it, man. And I would be like, you're totally in the right. And I'm not going to tell you that you're wrong. He's a great character. He, like you said, he brings so much like empathy. You know, we talked about the juxtaposition of, you know, when you first meet Major Briggs, you think he's going to be the stalwart, you know, tough guy who doesn't show emotion. And he's the most emotional person possibly in the series. Like, and I don't say that as a silly thing. Like, he is so in tune with who he is as a human being and human nature in general that, like, anyone else saying the line, like, what do you fear the most? You know, that maybe love is not enough. Anyone else would make that line goofy. That line is so sincere.
Yeah.
And you feel it when he says that. Like, and there's genuine fear in that delivery. And I think that's so, it's so perfect. It may be the most perfect Major Briggs moment next to the scene, of course, where he tells Bobby that beautiful dream, which is one of my favorite scenes that Lynch has ever shot in anything. It's stunning. And so I'm with you. I love that they didn't recast Don Davis because it just would not feel right. Like, it just wouldn't feel right at all. And who would you even think about trying to put in that role? Like, it just wouldn't be right. So I really appreciate that they are able to still make him a part of it. And it's amazing, like, how he'll help Bobby again. Like, as you know, as someone who's lost his father, like, that stuff really registered with me going through this again. The idea that, you know, even from the grave, because of memories and because of things they did together, there's a real payoff, and Major Briggs still continues to take care of Bobby in the return. And I we'll get to that when we get there, but I love that Don Davis is all over this, even though he's already gone. He's still all over it, and they pay such great homage and real, like, heartfelt homage to his role in this. And I think it's just wonderful. But in this episode, it's just that kind of like, holy shit name drop where you're like, because we all know that Don Davis is deceased. So when they tell you it's Major Briggs, you're like, what now? Like,
well, especially because, you know, all of that South Dakota stuff still sort of feels disconnected.
Exactly. It's getting there, but it does feel that way.
So then that's a major connection to the main storyline, that this body that's been found.
It's
not
massive.
only Major Briggs's exposure to things on the other realm and the other side, but his knowledge of it. It makes sense that his character would be somewhere. In the lodge.
And the more you find out about that, the more you're like, well, that does make sense. That's not out of the realm. That makes sense. It really does.
The other thing that sort of adds to the mystery is the fingerprints. You know, this idea of the flipped fingerprints, which is an interesting an interesting little wrinkle.
The doppelganger has flipped prints. It's such a smart thing. Like, it's so simple, but it's so smart. Like, I love it.
It's nice to have that sort of mystery elements back into the show.
And we haven't even talked about the fact that we do see Mr. C in this episode, big time. And I love that we have the moment where he confirms to us that Bob is still riding shotgun. With that beautiful shot in the mirror. Like, because it's one of those things, when I first watched it, I was like, did I see that right? Like, and then I had to, like, bring it back up and rewatch the scene to be like, that his face morphs into Bob's for that split second. But I was like, man, that's terrifying. Like, what
and it brings moment. So in the original series, the mirror shots of Bob's were always one of the most terrifying things, and this is such a direct callback to that in a way that just doesn't exist otherwise in the series. And
again, Frank Silva had already passed away. It's wonderful to be able to still have him involved as well, using his likeness and doing it. It's awesome.
That's right. That, and also have the fact that we get, like, because, you know, so many when Fire Walk With Me came out, there were so many fans that were upset that it wasn't a continuation of what happened after the toothpaste and the broken mirror. And here we get to a direct, like an explicit callback to that shot. We actually see flashbacks to that moment, but then we also see this mirror use of the mirror and Frank Silva's image that calls back. So we're getting the what the fans clamored for may not be getting in the way that they thought or expected,
but we are getting it.
We
Yes.
are getting it. Yes, exactly. And that he's saying, yeah, remember, this is what you said you wanted, is what happened to Cooper after that moment, and here we go. Here's what's happened. So yeah, so that's that little affirmation. Yes, this is what's going on here, and we have that great scene when he makes his phone call, which again, the humor in this episode is off. That is a very funny scene as well, despite the fact
funny
that
and creepy at the same time.
Yes.
Well, yeah, because he's dialing way too many numbers to actually be calling anyone.
Yeah.
And again, it's that weird technology that David Lynch has in all of his shit. Like it's like nobody has phones that work like that. Like nobody has shit that looks like that. And it's so, but it's funny and creepy at the same time. Cause like the first time when I watched that, when the alarms start going off and shit, I was like, oh shit, like this is bad.
Yeah.
And it absolutely is. But man, what a hell of a scene. It's great. It's absolutely great.
But the whole Mr. Strawberry reference I find so interesting, because it's on the one hand really funny, but also really creepy. Like as I was watching it again, I was also finding it all really creepy.
Yeah.
And is that just a distraction that he's throwing that name out there? Does that name mean something? I don't think we ever really find out.
I don't think we do either. From memory server, we do not.
But what it's got just that real mix of humor and uncanny.
Yeah, that unsettling uncanny kind of stuff. Yeah. No, it's this episode. I mean, it does so much to move things forward, and including introducing new characters and then keeping things moving. All the plates that are spinning on sticks. Like it's a lot of plate spinning, but at the same time, like every scene feels like it's building to something. Nothing ever feels like, well, why was that there? Like that's not gonna. Why would you put that in? Like you may not understand what it's going to be, but you still get the vibe that everything we're seeing is going to have some connection when it's all said and done. You may not understand how it's going to connect, but you always feel like Lynch is in control of what he's doing here. He and Mark Frost really have like a path right now. When we get to the end of that path, we can talk about how we want to interpret that path, but they, in their working, they have a path. And they're taking us along for the ride. And it does not feel like they're veering off here just to veer off there for no reason. Everything is going to end up being connected when it's all said and done.
Right. We neglected to talk about Dr. Jacoby when we were.
Jacoby.
So there's been a few.
Of his shovel.
Yeah, there's been a few suggestions or lead up scenes to this, but we didn't really know, like when he's painting the gold shovels in the woods, we don't really know what that's about yet, but now we're getting we're understanding it. We've got Nadine's moments here is great.
Four audience members, Nadine and
Jerry. Like the fact that and of course where Jerry Horn is in life right now is absolutely hilarious. Like,
he's like, I know what I'm about to cook up.
And like you said, Nadine, it's so funny like how sincerely invested she is in the broadcast, like how she buys the shovel so she can shovel herself out of the shit. Like it's so amazing where all that ends up going as well. And again, tremendous payoff in the end with that shovel. So help me Christ, there's tremendous payoff. But I love the fact that like this. It's like it almost makes perfect sense that is where Dr. Jacoby would be at this point.
I was going to say the same thing.
We all talked about the fact he was a horrible doctor, right? So like he shouldn't be doing that anymore. This makes perfect sense.
I kind of assume he got, probably got kicked off, like his license revoked at some point in the last 25 years.
Yeah.
It looks like he probably got forced retirement.
Yeah.
And he went and like canceled himself to the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
And
off the grid, except for his broadcast, right?
Yeah. And that I just think it makes so much sense for where this guy could go. Like, that's what I love about the pieces of the return that are returning to old characters threads is that they're not just more of the same of the old characters. They've really thought about, okay, what would likely happen to this character in 2.5 decades, right? Like, it's nice that they've evolved them to the point, like, we don't just pick up where we left off with them. We're actually seeing, because even with Norma, she's still working at the diner, but you're right, she's now, we don't know this yet, it's still, that's part still coming, but she's running an empire in a way. And so, like, they're not just picking up these characters and plunking them back to where we left them. We're actually seeing where what would have happened.
Has passed, man. Like, plain and simple.
Yeah, and it's a different world for them to exist in too. It's a different century. It's a different world.
Yep.
They are, they're living in what the modern world is now giving them. And I think that it makes sense that Jacoby would do some sort of podcast that, where he's promoting his, wellness ideas in a way that, isn't regulated by any kind of professional body.
No, because he couldn't be, period.
Exactly.
No, it is hilarious. Like, every time he pops up, it's so funny. Like, every single one of those broadcasts. I love, like, the crank that he has and stuff. Like, it's so, like, old school, and it's so great. Like, it's so perfect. It's so perfect.
But it's not going to be, it's not just to throw him in there like with Mike. It's not just to throw him in there so we get to see what happened to him. It's going to play into a very important part of where the story
one of my
goes.
favorite payoffs in the return.
I mean, a few of them. I mean, we've talked about, I think we mentioned this before. I'm really happy where Nadine ends up at the end of this whole thing too. Like, it's not, there's a lot that's going to pay off from this. And so
there's a lot.
It's in there. It's leading to something, and it's also just incredibly entertaining along the way that we get there. Like, that whole scene, I'm just eating it up. I'm loving it. I'm watching it, and I'm having a great time with it. This was one of the funnier episodes that we've seen so far.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, we get a little bit.
I'm trying to remember though. Is this episode where we first see Richard Horn?
Yes. Which,
okay,
if you want to talk about how funny, we also get the most evil person in Twin Peaks, and not the most deplorable thing he's gonna do, but probably one of the most evil things to happen at the Roadhouse. Which there's a number of things of random one-off characters where horrible things happen.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's nice because the Roadhouse is being used as this sort of like bookmarker to end most episodes. This one doesn't end at the Roadhouse, but it's still near the end. But still, like, we get introduced to him. We get some plot development that's going on.
We also find out how
too.
sleazy Chad is as a detective.
Oh, God.
Exactly.
Yeah, fuck Chad.
Our police officer, I should say, not detective. He's just a police officer.
Yeah,
he sucks. I hate him so much. I mean, the actor does a great job with that character. I hate that character. He's awful.
Yeah.
He's awful.
Yeah, and that's we talked about the fact that the police force seems to have ballooned, and I think it makes sense that it's not going to be this family of do-gooders that are all have each other's backs. That now there's going to be office politics. There's going to be stuff going on. People are going to be doing different things, and Chad is a representation of some of that. And
the like we talked about before, Twin Peaks has also evolved over 25 years, and unfortunately, the things that happen in any city, in USA, they happen there too. And sometimes they happen there even worse. That includes drugs, that includes violence, that includes murder. Like, there's so many terrible things.
Yeah.
Which honestly, the police force would need to get bigger because more and more problems are there. The problem is, of course, in places like that, and we see these kinds of stories all the time. We see corruption within, the law enforcement system because it's a small town. Everybody knows everybody. You can get away with shit. And that's sort of what we're seeing here too. It's almost like a little bit of a treatise about that, but it's like we see that evil that's always kind of been there, whether it's from Bob or the residents of the Black Lodge, whatever it is, we know there's always been a presence there. And kind of like with like Pennywise and It, it's like that presence is like infecting the town, right? Like, it just continues to infect, and that includes infecting the people. And we'll see more examples of that as the season goes on.
We don't know his name, but talking about how evil Richard is, we're going to get probably near the end of the series, we're going to find out probably why he's so evil.
Oh yeah. There's a reason. There's a
But
reason.
we're getting just a little taste of it in this one, and it's brutal. Like it's that scene, because that scene is not funny compared to all the rest of the show, which has had so much humor laced into it. But David Lynch again with his interest in violence against women and how he portrays on the screen, he takes that scene very seriously, even though it is a very like they're strangers. These two characters, it's not intimate violence, but it's it's definitely introducing us. Yeah, and it's introducing us to who this this is a really bad guy. So we're getting some introduced to that, but David Lynch takes that scene seriously, and I think that's important. So yeah, it stood out in such a funny episode for not being funny.
But that's part of the point. Is it kind of like it punches you in the gut, and it reminds you that this is also going on. Like this shit is going on, and this guy is going to be a lot worse of a problem. He's going to be nothing but trouble.
Right. And it hits differently than the scene with Norma and Shelley and Becky, because those characters we care about, we know who they are, we love them, blah blah blah. These are strangers that we don't know yet. Yeah, right. But we don't know these people. We don't know her, the victim. We don't know him yet. We're gonna, but this is our introduction.
We'll find out.
Yep, and it's
nasty. Because before that all goes down, you're like, well, this guy's just a jerk, right? He's just smoking, not paying attention, and obviously he's doing something shady because he gives Chad the water, but then it goes from 1 to 100 in a matter of seconds.
Well, and it's interesting, it's happening right in public under everybody's eye. People aren't necessarily coming to her rescue, like her friends are trying to talk, but it's not like there's like a bunch of good guys in the bar who come up to him and be like, is there a problem here?
And step off, right? Like,
exactly. No, it doesn't happen, and that was, I think, striking as well, right? Like, it's just the party's going on. The bar is packed with people too. They showed it before. It's packed with people. It's not like it's an empty.
Yeah, the Roadhouse is like the place to be now. Like, it was never like that in the original series. Like now, it's like always a party, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, we assume Twin Peaks has grown, right?
It has. Absolutely. It has.
When you get the 9 Inch Nails and Eddie Vedder to come perform.
Yeah.
I mean, the 9 Inch Nails. Yes, he does refer to them as such. No, it is like it's definitely like, and it's one of the neat things that they do at the return is like we get these wonderful set pieces at the Roadhouse with like a different band, like each week, and it's like you're getting a taste of like the kind of music that Lynch is into, obviously, but again, it just kind of adds an extra flavor to the series. And so it ends up giving it a very eclectic soundtrack when it's all said and done, and some really great music too. So like, I really like, again, like just rewatching it really is amazing how, like you said earlier, Colin, like they are giving you stuff that you've wanted, right? Like it may not have been in the context that you thought it was going to be, or exactly how you thought it was going to happen, but you're getting it. Like you really are. And, again, like I've said, I think that the mantra of the show overall is that, you can't go home again. Twin Peaks is not the same in 2017 as it was in 1990 and 1991. It's not. And because the world isn't the same as it was back then. It's really, I love that Twin Peaks is not like exclusive to that. Right. Like Twin Peaks has also continued to evolve and grow for better and for worse. But I really appreciate it, because it would have been so easy to just be like, oh, all this is happening in the world, but not in good old Twin Peaks, right? Like, come get your same.
Look, everybody's doing what they were doing 25 years ago.
Exactly. And it would have been so easy to do that, but they didn't.
But that wouldn't have been as good or as interesting because
and it would have rang false.
Trying to repeat
it would have rang so false.
And not only is that not reality, also David Lynch wasn't the same artist he was by 2017.
That's why we went through the films that we went through in between, on our little break, because you have to know where he was at that point.
And neither was Mark Frost, right?
Yes.
No, Mark Frost either.
Yeah. The where was I going with that? I mean, we've talked about this theme about it not being the same and needing to evolve and changing into something different. But I mean, this came out in a high era of reboots of popular shows, right?
And movies.
So many of them, just repeated what they were doing before. And this, I think, was shocking and groundbreaking because it was very connected intricately to what was happening before in all the ways that we're talking about, but yet so strikingly different in structure, in tone, in just everything, yet still such an essential part of all of it.
Well, it's almost like, David Lynch and Mark Frost are like kind of showing you, this is how, if you're going to do a revisit to an older series, this is how you do it. You can't just do the same thing over again, because nobody would still be the same. Like, it's just not going to work. You've got to be true to what you are, who you are now, what the world is like now. And you've got to make sure that those things kind of break into the thing that you've created. And I think they do a really great job of that. It's amazing how much the stuff in Buckhorn feels like Twin Peaks. Like, I mean, it works. It's amazing how much, especially on the comedy aspect, the stuff in Las Vegas feels like it's part of Twin Peaks. And yet they're each radically different little places, and there's different things going on there. And yet it all still feels like it's part of the whole mythos, while not having to be trapped in the confines of Twin Peaks. Like, that's really like the great thing about The Return, is it becomes a much more epic story, right? Like, we're in New York, we're in Buenos Aires, we're in the realm of non-existence, like we're all over the goddamn place. But it just adds to the mythos. And at the same time, because Lynch and Frost had full control over this, it's still a wholly Twin Peaks product. So it's really like, if you're going to do a reboot, if you're going to revisit something, watch Twin Peaks: The Return. That's how you do it.
Well, and go ahead, Cody.
I was going to say, it's kind of funny, this little off topic, but you mentioned it about, this is in the time of other popular shows kind of rebooting themselves. But I mean, look at what they did with the Star Trek films, because yes, in a sense, they're doing the same thing, but they didn't shy away from talking about the characters aging in the decade and a half from when the show canceled. And like making the movies,
and like good science fiction, they were talking about the present day and the real world all the way through, right? Like, that's actually a really good example of people doing reboots, right? I think you're right.
Are you talking? Are you now? Hang on, I gotta know. Are you talking about the Kurtzman Star Trek?
No, I'm talking about the 6 films with Shatner and the original cast.
Okay, because I was like, if you're talking about the modern Star Trek, it's how you don't do a reboot, as far as I'm concerned. It's hot garbage. Other than season 3 of Picard, which was the only good season of that, it's hot garbage. It's absolutely awful. But no, the original 6 films, absolutely, that's how you do it, because you still keep the flavor of the original series, but because you're able to evolve it, not only with budget and visual effects, but you're getting to tell, those original stories were pretty much, if you think about it, the original track was all like, every episode was not really connected to the previous one, right? Like, it's just episodic, just this is going on this week, next week different monster, next week different planet, whatever. But with the films, you started to be able to create that mythos, right? Like, suddenly the episodes, Space Seed Part 1 and 2 become incredibly important when you get the Wrath of Khan, right? Like, and that was really one of the first, if you really think about it, that's almost like the first real reboot like that that's ever really happened, right? Like, the Wrath of Khan is sort of like that reboot retelling of Space Seed, right? Like, those 2 episodes aired in like 1967, 68, whatever. And other than just being in syndication, that's it.
And it came from a guy who wasn't even a Trek fan, who just went to the Paramount lot and watched all the tapes and was like, well, that episode, that guy's interesting. What's his story? What's he been up to?
And you get what is arguably, one of the best science fiction films ever made. Like, I mean, where you put it in the pantheon of Star Trek films is up to you. For me, it's like right up there with Part 6. Like, they're damn near tied.
Same director.
Nicholas Meyer. Nicholas Meyer really knew what the hell he was doing. But, again, that's a prime example of a great way of bringing something back while keeping it faithful to what it was, but evolving it because the characters are older. I love the fact that Star Trek 2, the big thing it's talking about is we're getting older. I mean, Kurt gets the beautiful pair of glasses from
Yeah.
McCoy, and he's like almost insulted by it because he's like he doesn't want to admit that we're getting older. Like it's a beautiful story. Like The Wrath of Khan is so well told when you look at it from the concept of what it means to get older. What does it mean for your purpose in life? Do you still have the same purpose in what you do, you know, at this stage than when you were out there in your younger self? And, you know, you should find purpose in everything that you do. So yeah, I think that's a great example when you're looking at like in essence, what was a reboot, because they really kind of were, but it's also a continuation of the original series, the universe that they created, and it works really, really well. I mean, even though I do have issues with part 5, I still find it watchable for everything with the main 3, right? Like they're so great together when they go out camping and shit. Like I can watch that all day long. So for me, like that's a 6-film run where everything pretty much works, man. Like it really does. And so, yeah, I think that's a solid pick. Whereas I don't hate the Star Wars sequel trilogy. I have issues with it, but I think its biggest problem was it was too slavish to what came before it. You know, The Force Awakens is literally almost point for point a remake of Episode 4, A New Hope. And it didn't have to be. Like there's so many stories that you could tell in that universe, but because they felt like they had to still keep connected to the original stuff with Luke Skywalker and Han Solo and Princess Leia, that ends up causing it to really suffer because you can't let it breathe and be its own thing. It has these chains attached to it that drag it back to the original trilogy when they should have just made their own damn thing. That's the great thing about Twin Peaks with The Return. You know, Lynch and Frost are able to revisit the world that they created, right? Like they're able to go back to it, but they are not beholden to say everything has to be exactly like it was in 1990 and 1991. Because again, like you said, it would be boring if it's just the same shit, but we're doing it in 2017, or like the rest of the world is really, you know, has evolved, but Twin Peaks hasn't. Like that just doesn't work, man. And so they really did everything right by continuing to evolve those characters. Now, some people may not like where they went. You know, some people may not like what happened with Agent Cooper. I get it. Totally understand it. But for me, the more I watch The Return, the more and more I love Dougie Jones, Dougie Coop. And the more and more I feel like we get so much more of Cooper than we thought we got the first time going through it. It's really smart how Lynch and Frost pull that off. Like it really, and I mean, God, Cal MacLachlan's work in this is phenomenal.
That's where I wanted to go.
Still pisses me off. Like,
that's where I wanted to go. Is this episode really highlighted just what a great job Cal MacLachlan is doing playing these multiple characters.
Oh man, he's just doing the best work of his career in this period.
Yeah, and I'm so glad that he came around to really loving playing this character again. And I get maybe why right after Twin Peaks he wanted to do things that were completely different and not be tied. So that, but I think it's great that he came around to realize this was his, you know, like David Lynch's magnum opus, this is probably his as well, and that this
I would have to agree with that. Yeah,
giving him such an amazing, opportunity to really just do some amazing work as an actor. Like it must have been so much fun for him and such a great challenge for him to play all these different versions of Cooper, and this episode is one of those ones where it's really coming together.
He gets to do a little bit of everything. He gets to be the white knight in shining armor. He gets to be the mustache twirling villain. He gets to be the comic relief.
Yeah.
Like he gets to be everything.
And in all of that, he gets to be the leading man. Like really. But again, also you have to look at that and you have to really understand how much David Lynch loves Cal MacLachlan. Like he really wanted to make it worth his while to come back for this thing. And he absolutely did. I mean, like you cannot deny that he gave him it was almost just like, dude, I'm going to gift wrap this for you, man. Like you deserve this. I've been waiting for a long time to be able to give you this gift. Here are all these different parts you get to play out of the same thing.
Well, and I think, again, it's down the road for us to talk about, but I think his best work comes at the end of the show too. So there's so much more ahead for him. Like you're right. Yeah. He's doing all of these parts right now, and that's really great and amazing. But yeah, I think the best is still to come.
And but I think the first time they're working together since the show canceled.
Well, they did work in Fire Walk with Me.
Oh,
But,
Yes.
briefly, yeah, but I
Yes.
mean that's still connected to.
Yes, yeah.
Like this, he didn't
But
show
no,
up
post
in any
Twin
of the.
Peaks, you're right. No, you're right.
Right.
He didn't
Yeah.
show up in any of the subsequent movies Lynch did after
No.
Twin Peaks.
No. It definitely it's so great to see them back together again and to see like how much they love each other. You know, like it's just it's all over every frame of film when Cooper's on there. Like well, Mr. C, Coop, Dougie, whichever one. It's all over it. I mean, like David Lynch just is like, I trust you with this. I'm going to challenge you, but I know you're going to rise to it. We're going to do this together, and it's going to be your best work.
Well,
and he's completely right.
And we're going to see that with one other actor too that's coming into the series, someone that David Lynch works really well with, and that we're going to be able to see coming up here too. But also just a little quick shout out. I don't know if you guys saw the pictures this week that it's great. I know, Kevin, you'll appreciate this, just the sort of reevaluation of Dune that's been going on in Lynch's death. With this, Villeneuve doing the photo shoot tribute to him by shooting Kyle MacLachlan and Timothy Chalamet together. It was really lovely to see that, and just the love for that was just great to to throw back to that. So that as a tribute to him and everything that he brought.
I've really in his passing, it's really been heartwarming for me to see the number of people coming out and saying I really like Lynch's Dune. It's I don't feel as alone anymore as I did for the longest time, and seeing that picture really was awesome. I wish that I'll be honest, as much as I love Christopher Walken in Dune Part 2, I would have loved if Kyle MacLachlan was cast as Emperor. I'd have been all about that shit, dude.
Yeah, it could have been cool. Who knows? Maybe there'll be a role for him in Dune.
I would love for that to be the case, dude. If he could somehow pop up in Dune Messiah, I'd be so tickled. So tickled. It'd be so great because he's such a great actor. Kyle MacLachlan is such a great actor, and he's such a good human being. By all accounts, man, anybody who has ever met him, they say he is exactly what you think he'd be. He is just the kindest, coolest guy. And I really respect that.
He does have that sort of reputation in Hollywood of being a nice guy to work with, just like David Lynch had, very similar reputation.
That might be one of the things they connected with as well.
Yeah.
Besides that they're nice, good middle America boys that are a little weird.
Yeah.
I for me, it has been really wonderful to see that revision of Dune. That has been very heartwarming for me. I still, it's still weird to think that we're doing this now in the posthumous phase of David Lynch. It still doesn't seem possible. It's still so weird. But I got to go here in Charleston. We have an underground theater that's underneath Taylor Books, and they bring in all kinds of cool stuff. I got to see John Carpenter's Assault on Precinct 13, and it only seats 30 people. It's not it's not big. It's really cozy. It's popcorn's $1, or $2. Drinks are $1. It's so charming and so old school, and I love it. So I mean, they're showing Blu-rays. I know they don't have a film projector. I don't fucking care. It's fine. It's great. But it's the atmosphere, right? So in tribute to Lynch's passing, they screened a weekend ago. They did on Friday and Saturday. They screened Mulholland Drive, and so I never got to see it in the theater. So this was the closest it would ever get for me. But they were showing the 4K Criterion edition, which was a stunning transfer.
Yeah.
Getting to watch that with and it was a pretty packed house, including someone who brought their really cute dog. It was great. It was a wonderful thing to experience. So my partner went with me, and she had watched it because I took her through all of Twin Peaks, and then I took her through Mulholland Drive and a few other things. We didn't do Lost Highway yet, but this was her second time seeing it, and I was a little heartbroken because she's like, I just don't like it, and I was like, but what is it you don't like? She's like, well, she's autistic. She'll tell you she's very high on this, but she's still autistic. But she's like, my autistic brain needs payoff for the first half of that film. And when you tell me it's just a dream, I get mad. And I'm like, that's fair. I get it. She's like, I respect how beautifully shot it is. It's funny. It's creepy. It's all those wonderful things. But from an analytical mind standpoint, the way that her brain works, she's like, I hate that it's it was just all a dream and none of this matters. And she's like, I want payoff.
Well, I don't think you could say none of it matters. But
for what she wants as far as the resolution to these things, I get where she's coming from. I get it completely.
That's fair. Yeah.
But that's why I'm like, well, I don't know that we're gonna watch Lost Highway then, because
I was gonna say, maybe don't show her a racer.
I love that film so much, and I really don't want you to look at me and be like, I really hate this film, and I'll just be like, oh, we have a child together, but get the fuck out. But no, but to her credit, like, she really, like, she's like, I will totally give credit to everybody's performances. Like,
Right.
it is a great looking film. It's beautifully shot. Everybody's really great. I just need resolution to that. And it's fair. Like, it's where a lot of people who don't like Lynch, that's one of the complaints that they usually have is like, I need to know why this is happening, because as human beings, anytime we see any kind of puzzle, we need to solve it.
Right.
And with Lynch, it was more about like the vibe and the feeling, right? Like, it doesn't, not every single thing has to have like an absolute connection to what is going on. Lynch will tell you himself, there are things I shot in this film that I just shot because the day that I was there, I had this thought or I saw this thing and I just shot it. And that's why it's in there. Like, he just was one of those people. And so I totally get when she told me that. I was like, I get it. Like, my heart hurt a little bit, but to her credit, she had seen it before and she thought she wasn't really sure. She thought didn't like it. So she still went with me. Right. So I give her total props on that.
I appreciate that opinion, because it's not just, this is bad, I don't like it.
No.
Yeah,
well, Cindy's an artist, so she very much understands art is subjective. Like, she gets that.
And it's like, is it really bad, or is it just not for you?
Right.
Like,
right.
Can you look at this and be like, yeah,
that's basically where she's at. Because like, she enjoyed Twin Peaks, like, she really did. And she really liked The Return. She's not sure how she feels about the ending of it, but she liked going through it. But no, again, Cindy's an artist, so like, she understands like art is subjective, but she knows when she's seeing something that's good. You know, like, she knows the performances are great. She knows it's beautifully shot. She knows the soundtrack works really well. She knows that the creepy scenes are genuinely creepy. The sexy scenes are genuinely sexy. Like, she appreciates all of it. She just doesn't like the story that it's telling, is basically what it comes down to. I get that. Totally respect it. I totally understand it. But I appreciated that she went with me just to have that experience in a theater setting, you know? And it was, in her mind, she was like, I just want to give it one more chance. Like, maybe I just was looking at it wrong. Like, maybe I'll feel different. But she's like, I hate to say it, I just don't feel different. But I'm like, you know what, though? You gave it a chance. You know, you went with me, and you went with me to the theater, and you gave it a chance. So like, I love her because she was willing to do that. But we're not going to watch Lost Highway. I'm not going to deal with that heartbreak.
We can't risk that. No, I can't. Lost Highway, and I do think that Mulholland Drive is more accessible for a mainstream audience than Lost Highway. So I think that's
fair.
That you can like that. It might be, it may not be the best plan. But this episode, again, just come back to just how much Kyle MacLachlan is in it. I mean, yes, I know he's in all the episodes. He's good in all, but is he in all of them? Is he in 8? I can't remember. Maybe he is. I'll have to see if
the first part of 8.
Yeah, I think so. But
yeah, he is in the first part of 8.
But in this one,
when Mr. C gets out of prison,
right?
Yeah,
but still, this one is heavy on him, and it was a nice reminder of that, because we get lots of Dougie, we get lots of understanding Dougie more, we get a little bit of Mr. C, and we get those throwbacks, we get the specific like flashback scenes to the season finale, the series finale of the original run. There's really great it's really great just to see. It reminded me of how great he is in this whole series. But I think, is there anything we didn't talk about in this episode?
Well,
I think we covered most of it. I don't know if you guys
heard me, and it's just a brief scene, but it's a little bit of comedy with Andy and Hawk going through the files.
Yeah, very, very quick little bit there, yes.
Is it really about the bunny? Like, that's just, God. Like, I swear, like, I love Hawk and Andy so goddamn much. And I love them in every scene they're in The Return. Like, they're just, I love the old school crew, because I love that they still feel like those characters from 1990 and 1991, but they absolutely feel like those characters 25 years older. Like, it works, man. It really does. Yeah,
it does feel like Andy and Lucy are losing their, or have lost a few steps in their, so like I said, I appreciate that. I'm glad that's not just in the same scenario that they were in before. And but Hawk is still, again, the star player of that team, right? And it's
always
so great to see him,
Always.
doing all that. So yeah, it's
It is a simple moment, but you're right. It's a great one. It really is. It's a great one.
This episode felt like a working episode. I don't know how to better say it than that, but it felt like it was moving the story forward more than others. It was less set piece focused. It was more on.
Tell me if you agree with me on this, but like the first time you went through this, the first 4 episodes really are kind of like different, right? Like they're different. This was to me when it really started coming together to where it really felt like Twin Peaks to me.
Yeah.
Like this was the episode where that really started coming around for me. And it just gets so much better as it goes on. Not that I didn't enjoy the first 4 episodes. No. Wally Brando alone was worth the price of admission.
Right.
But it was one of those things where it's so odd and so weird. And you're like, I just don't know where this is going. But when this episode hit, it just felt like this is where the rubber meets the road, man. Like,
stories are starting to come together. Like everything else was
really taking off.
Starting points, and because there's so much going on, they took a long time on the off ramp, and now we are, going. And so this episode really starts that trajectory moving forward. So it was a great one to rewatch and reminded me of so much that's coming to look for. Because again, it's that connective tissue is going on here, right? So
much
gives me so much to look forward to coming up. I do wanted to do a quick little throwback there, just for fans of the original show. Leslie Linker Glatter, I always say her name wrong, as a new series coming out this week with Robert De Niro in it. That appears on what is it? It's Netflix, a new Netflix show. She's directed all the episodes, and we've always talked about how much she was one of our favorite.
She's one of the MVPs of the original run,
the original show. So I don't know if this will be any good, but I just wanted to throw that out there. The president.
That's good DGA, to know, man. I'll gladly check that out.
I didn't know I was last week old when I learned she was the president of the DGA. So good for her. So it's.
I didn't realize that either. That's excellent.
Yeah. So anyways, so good for her. I just wanted to throw that out there because I know how much we raved about her work in the original show.
And deservedly so. I mean, when you look at those episodes that she did in the original run, like they are some of the they're probably the best episodes that were not directed by David Lynch. Mm-hmm. If we're really honest with it, they're probably the best non-David Lynch episodes.
Right. Yeah, and she's been working hard. She's had a successful career. She's still going strong. So good for her.
Love it.
Got a new show out there again. Who knows if it'll be any good or not? But it's got Robert De Niro in it. So there's.
I was gonna say it's got her. It's got De Niro. That gets my attention. When does it debut this week?
Yeah, I think it's like Thursday. It drops on Netflix or something.
Okay,
like that.
very cool.
Yeah, 0 Day. It's called. I think.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah, 0 Day. That's
0 Day, yeah. So just since we're fans of her work, I thought I'd throw that out there.
Now I've got to catch up on 2 episodes, but I will say this: we talk about the numerous shows that were inspired by Twin Peaks. I don't know if you guys watched Severance.
I haven't watched.
My God, if that wasn't inspired by Twin Peaks, like it's got Lynchian vibes. It's excellent. It's excellent.
Yeah,
I'm a huge sci-fi nerd. And it really feels like if David Lynch worked on a sci-fi joint, like it's excellent. And you got Patricia Arquette, so one of his former gals. It's excellent. I cannot explain enough. Like, don't read anything about it. Just go into it. Because man, it's an experience. It is an absolute.
Also, how underrated Ben Stiller is as a director.
Dude, I've always loved him as a director. Like, I think The Cable Guy is one of the most criminally underrated films of the 90s. Like, nobody understood the attack on pop culture that film was, much like they didn't understand how Tropic Thunder was an absolute attack on the Hollywood system. Like, I don't know how he got to make those films. Like, it's like nobody paid attention to the absolute lambasting he gave Hollywood with those movies. And I think Zoolander is also spectacular. So Ben Stiller is a solid director as far as I'm concerned. His work on Severance, though, is game changing. Like there are some shots in that show that I'm like, how the shit did they pull that off? Like, I do not know how they shot. There's an opening tracking shot in the first episode of season 2 that I was like, that's goddamn amazing. Like, I don't know how they mapped that out. Like the sheer. Like the pre-visualization they had to do to really understand where the camera is going to move and how the actor is going to move, and every single second of that shot. It's stunning. Like, I was like, man, that's how you open your goddamn season. If you've not checked it out, guys, I cannot recommend it enough. It definitely is a show that you can tell if Twin Peaks doesn't walk, it doesn't get to run. So I will highly recommend, if you're a Twin Peaks nerd, Severance will kind of scratch some of that David Lynch edge for you, because it definitely is a show about mystery and about building things, and it's about details. It is not a show where you can sit on your phone and doom scroll while it's on. You've got to really sit and focus on it. And I do love the fact, just bring it back to Twin Peaks, I love the fact that the return is structured that way. David Lynch doesn't want you on your phone, man.
No.
He wants you watching what's going on. And there's so much going on in every single scene of this 18 episode arc, man. Like it's all killer, no filler. I mean, that's really an amazing thing to say for 18 hours of television, but it's the truth.
Yeah, no, it was great to be reminded of that with episode 5. So we've got episode 6 coming up here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Boy, that's a big one.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's a lot to talk about there, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to start breaking these up into single episode ones.
Yes.
It just felt like it was going to be so much. It was going to be hard for us to talk about everything.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. When are we doing that?
Let's see.
Because 2 weeks from now is Oscar night.
So how does March 9th work?
Oh, I can't do the 9th, unfortunately. I might be able to do the 16th unless we wanted to move to a different day. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, Oscar night probably is not a good night to do it.
I would say the 16th would be fine.
16th is good then.
Great.
Episode 6.
Back to our regular time. And thanks for accommodating me today, you guys.
No problem.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, man.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed yourself.
Well, that gives us a month to get through that meaty episode.
Well, it's funny. I've been going through the return with a friend of mine, so this will allow me to basically catch up to that point by the time we get there, I think. So this should be great.
There you go.
And he loved the first 2 episodes, by the way. I was very happy. He's like, man, he's like, this is, I don't know where this is going, but he's like, this is really interesting.
Has he watched the original, or is he starting fresh? Okay.
Yeah, he loved it. He just never, he has the box set. He just never really watched it. So I was like, dude, I will sit and watch it with you, man.
There's a part of me that would love to do an experiment to watch The Return with someone who just never has any history to it. I'd just be curious to see what that experience would be like. I don't think that's how I'd want someone to watch it, but there's a part of me that just wants to know what that would be like.
I'm with you. Like, there's the curiosity, like, and I do know that there were people who started watching it who didn't watch the previous, because they would be like, do I really need to watch this? Because this seems really weird. And I'm like, oh my Christ, yes, you need to watch this. Like, you won't know anything.
Yeah.
But it's also like, if you were a David Lynch fan, but somehow you never watched Twin Peaks, if you started with The Return, and like your favorite David Lynch film was like Mulholland Drive, like I don't think you'd have too much trouble maybe in the long run getting into it. Like if you were
you wouldn't have all the context, but you
wouldn't have the context, but I think you'd still be able to, because Lynch and Frost do a good job of bringing back stuff from seasons 1 and 2. They give us these little flashbacks. Like they do a good enough job there. I think that, like, I'm not saying you would get the full rich experience of it, but if you were a Lynch nerd who just somehow never watched Twin Peaks, I feel like The Return would not be like, it wouldn't be super difficult homework. It'd be homework, but it wouldn't be like impossible homework. I feel like you could do it.
Maybe.
I would never suggest that. But I'm with you, Colin. There is that like dark, weird part of me that's like, but what would it be like if we did?
Yeah.
Is there a child that we can find and subject it to it? Just make
it evil experiment on
18 hours of
it. Yeah, we'll do it like Mystery Science Theater. We just trap someone and like, we're just going to show you this with no context.
Yeah. Just take it in. Well, so that by that time we can all complain about who should have won the Oscars and didn't.
Yeah.
But that'll be another discussion we can have at that point.
And I'm sure, like I said, if you guys ever want to get together during the week just to catch up like we talked about, I'm happy to do that anytime, man.
Mm-hmm. All right. So it was great, guys. Look forward to seeing you guys in a month.
See you guys soon. Have a great night. You guys enjoy your day off if you both get a day off
Yep.
tomorrow?
Yep.
I do not.
Oh,
I do
me
not.
I do.
neither.
Oh no. I will be sleeping in, so I'll be thinking
Well,
about
for
it.
you.
enjoy it.
Good for you.
Right.
Get it where you can, man.
That's right.
Well, guys, as
Exactly.
always, it's a pleasure. I look forward to talking with you about episode 6 because, man, if there was a lot going on in 5, there's a lot going on in 6.
Yeah. See you
Good night,
guys
guys.
then.
All right, night, guys. Bye.